My guest today on 12 Minutes With is the former Ukrainian Foreign Minister Dmytro Kuleba. Sir, thank you so much for joining us on Euronews.
It's my pleasure.
Now, you were part of President Zelensky's inner circle until last year. You know him. What do you think will be going through his mind this week as he's being pressured to quickly sign a peace deal by the US?
He will be saying to himself, we have to hold the line. He would consider any major concession as a beginning of a catastrophe for the country. So he will continue to engage constructively with President Trump. He will continue to actively involve European leaders in this engagement. And he will also continue to rally Europeans to be faster and more efficient in the implementations of decisions they took themselves on rearming Europe, on providing financial assistance to Ukraine, etc.
You say that any concession would be a catastrophe, yet we now know from leaked conversations that the starting point for these talks was a Kremlin wish list, essentially, a Russia-drafted plan. Given all of this, can Ukraine trust the Americans as negotiators, as mediators in this process?
Not really, but we do not have another America. So you have to engage with them on the understanding that you cannot rely on them entirely. But there are so many issues where America is irreplaceable that you cannot just say we don't want to do any business with you because you speak to the Russians too often, and you table their ideas as your own ideas. That's just not how it works. But strategic decoupling is obvious, and the sooner circles in Europe will realize that engagement with America can only be of tactical value, the better it will be for everyone.
So you say that if this all falls apart, if a peace deal doesn't come from this push, do you think that Europe is alone in supporting Ukraine?
I think it already fell apart. I believe that after the aggressive and erratic handling of this 28 points plan by Washington, resistance by Ukraine and Europe, and finally the Witkoff leaks, I don't think this 28 or 19 or whatever points plan can survive all of this. But there will definitely be something new, and no one can admit failure. So we will see this effort evolving in another effort. The problem is that it won't be much different. It may be framed differently. There may be like 15 or 30 or 35 points, but the content will be the same. And the question is, what do we have to do to change the substance of the proposal?
Now, we have seen some more concrete ideas come to light in this whole process this week. Maybe we can take a little bit of a closer look at them, because one of them is this idea of capping the Ukrainian army, originally 800,000. Now there's different figures being bandied about. But essentially, wouldn't this leave Ukraine vulnerable to future Russian attacks? Can Ukraine accept in any way any kind of limitations on its armed forces?
I believe it would be a grave mistake. First, this limitation, if you establish a cap on the army of 800,000 people, it's like still a lot. But it's a message, a clear message that a foreign power restricts your sovereignty. And secondly, it's a clear message that a foreign power humiliates your army, your nation, and this is just not. It cannot be accepted. So, in my view, even the idea that is floating is that like, let's set up a cap at the highest possible number, which still be enough. Let's just satisfy the Russians. I mean, if we proceed from the perspective of just satisfying the Russians, we will get nowhere. We will pave the road to hell with good intentions of satisfying the Russians. And capping the army is the most prominent example of that effort.
Because we have seen in recent months Western allies shifting from their position of, oh, we will send a force, a peacekeeping force to Ukraine, and saying, no, the best security guarantee for Ukraine is a strong, strong Ukrainian armed forces. But do you think in all of this they should be moving back to the concept of NATO membership? Does that need to be on the table? And what do you make of this concept, first floated by the Italian Prime Minister, that Ukraine could get some kind of Article 5 style guarantees without being a full-fledged member of NATO? Is that something you would support?
Isn't it embarrassing that almost 4 years into the war, European leaders are still jumping from one topic to another, from sending peacekeeping forces to Ukraine, to reassurance forces to Ukraine, to strengthening Ukrainian army, to offering something like Article 5 or offering membership. With this pace of decision making and conceptual understanding of where Europe is heading, there are no good times for Europe ahead. So we really have to get the coalition of the willing for the time being. I'm sorry, I appreciate every effort that is being made to support Ukraine, but when it comes to these big issues, coalition of the willing is more about branding and framing than actually offering answers to the most vital questions.
I want to come back to the question of Brussels' role here. Now, we hear here in Brussels that there's currently a lot of resistance still to this idea of giving Ukraine this reparations loan that would be based on Russia's immobilized state assets in Europe. There's no breakthrough at the moment. It's Belgium, but also other countries really not feeling that this is something that they can do, that the legal risks are too high. Do you think that Europe needs to just steam ahead with this plan, or could this infuriate President Trump, who also seems to have ideas about having his own slice of those Russian assets?
The choice is very simple. Since Europe believes that the support to Ukraine should continue, not only for the sake of Ukraine, but also for the sake of Europe, for its own security interest, then you have to find hundreds of billions of euros. These hundreds of billions of euros exist only in two places: in your pocket and in Russian frozen assets. So now you have to make your choice. Do you want to overcome the resistance of Belgium and maybe someone else in order to pay for the war with Russian money, or you want to take this money out of your own pocket? In my view, the answer is obvious.
It's been a challenging time for Ukraine domestically as well recently. I want to ask you, they're facing the continued veto of Hungarian Prime Minister Viktor Orban when it comes to Ukraine's accession to the EU. And while this has been heating up, there has also been this big, sprawling investigation by the two anti-corruption bodies into corruption that has touched the heart of government. Has President Zelensky responded in the right way to address this issue?
Well, he ordered two ministers implicated in this case to be knocked out of the government. But the Ukrainian society does not find these decisions sufficient. The mood in Ukraine is that more needs to be done in order to clean up the way the country is governed. And this is the biggest challenge the president is facing now. Otherwise, everyone understands that we are at war, and we have to be very responsible in the actions we take. But again, war is not an excuse to do whatever authorities believe they are entitled to do.
How concerned are you that if these talks fall apart, if Trump retreats once again, how concerned are you about the situation on the front line and the next year of war for the Ukrainians?
If things do not change in Ukraine and in the European Union, in November 2026, we can do another interview, and we will be discussing a situation when Russian army would further advance deeper into the heartland of Ukraine. Ukrainian economy would be further destroyed. European Union would still be discussing the frozen assets issue, and most dramatically, the same 28 points plan would be on the table. So if we really need to change things, we need to change ourselves. And this applies mainly to us in Ukraine and to you in the European Union.
But what do you mean by that, Mr. Kuleba? How can Ukraine and the EU change? What do they need to do right now to improve the situation and to make sure that Ukraine gets the support it needs?
Ukraine has to change the way it is governed. I'm not talking about elections. There will be no elections as long as the ceasefire is not concluded. But governance should improve. Secondly, trust between the society and the government should be restored. Europe has to do three things. Finally, start implementing the Rearm Europe program at the pace that matches the challenge. Solve the problem of Russian frozen assets and unblock the process of Ukraine's accession to the European Union. Do these things, and then together, Ukraine and Europe and the rest of Europe should keep President Trump from making any decisions that would stop the program of selling American weapons to European nations through NATO for Ukraine, and sharing intelligence.
Mr. Kuleba, thank you so much for your time.
Thank you.